Watch this. What is up, guys? It's your boy, Rick Kakis, and today, look, I just want to talk about the fact that I do not care about the Rite of the Nine event. I've tried to care, I really have, but I just have zero motivation to play this event right now. Now, why is that? Well, frankly, I just want to yap about it, okay? It's my channel. If I want to have a yap session, I'm going to have a yap session. That's exactly what this is. What is it with the Rite of the Nine where I have zero motivation to play, but in the previous event that was in the same position as this event, the Into the Light event, that I had all the motivation in the world to play. I was absolutely grinding Into the Light, but I don't want to grind Rite of the Nine. Well, let's get started. Okay, so Rite of the Nine, I will say there's a very good thing about it right off the bat. Like, let's sing its praises initially. And that's the fact that new players or free-to-play players or more casual players are getting access to content they didn't have previously, all right? So you have these dungeons that were previously locked behind a $20 dungeon pass. Now, not only can they do these dungeons and, you know, get the weapons essentially that were associated with them, even though those weapons have been altered slightly, but they're also able to do certain quests to give them, like, guaranteed dungeon exotics from said dungeons. Right, so you're getting stuff like the Navigator or even the Catalyst for the Galahorn. That was locked behind a $20 or, in the Galahorn situation, a $30 price tag. Now people are getting it completely for free. That is great. That is awesome. And again, if you're a more casual player who even maybe you bought access to these dungeons, but they were too hard, you couldn't find a team for them, you're now able to go into the new Explore mode and you're able to participate in this content, which is great. That's good. But for the hardcore players, for the grinders, for the people who've been here for a while, and I would even say for even like the middle tier players, there is just not a legitimate reason to grind the Rite of the Nine. First of all, the weapons. The weapons are barely acceptable in the current meta, and we know for a fact that when the Edge of Fate DLC arrives, it's gonna blow the current meta away, right? So you barely have an excuse to go after the weapons right now, and then looming is tier 5 weapons that are better than literally anything we have in the game right now because they have enhanced magazines, enhanced barrels, every single mod is enhanced, like they're just juiced to the gills, right? So that is a huge cloud, and that is a huge reason why I'm so unmotivated. I feel like when the Into the Light event was here, the weapons we were getting were so superior. First of all, they were actually hand-picked fan favorite weapons. You know, the Midnight Coup was back, the Mountaintop coming back, the Recluse coming back, the Hammerhead. These were heavy hitters. Aside from the Hung Jury, you know what I mean? Aside from that, pretty much all of the weapons we were going after were fan favorite weapons. I'm not sure any of the weapons from the Watcher of the Spire dungeon are going to be classified as fan favorite. I'm sure there's a Soul Survivor cult out there, but I wasn't part of it, okay? Like, and frankly, 99% of the people were also not part of it. And so you have these dungeons coming back. The Prophecy is the exception, but the Watcher of the Spire or the Spire of the Watcher, and you also have the Ghost of the Deep. These were not well-liked dungeons. Like, they were decent content, but it's not like everyone was clamoring for the Ghost of the Deep to return, right? And I just think that the difference between bringing back hand-picked fan-favorite weapons and then just picking the oldest kind of dungeons you have and redoing whatever their weapons happen to be, I just think that's quite a difference in the motivation to go and get it. But also, you know, even though it doesn't matter if there wasn't a bunch of people clamoring for the Soul Survivor, if the Soul Survivor role updated with the Rite of the Nine is good, you'll see people go for it. And that's exactly what happened. The Soul Survivor, that was the one exception. The Soul Survivor with Heal Clip Incandescent, bro, I was all over it. I legitimately grinded for that weapon, but after I got it, that's it. I don't really see any other weapon that's absolutely blowing my mind. Now, there's some cool weapons, and again, it all depends on what you have. If you're someone who's returning after a long hiatus, you're a new player, you're a more casual player, there's absolutely some weapons and some roles that are pretty fantastic for your account. But if you're someone who has a lot of the already good weapons, the already meta weapons, these weapons are just not bringing much to the table. And if we look back at the possible roles with the Into the Light, I mean, the Hammerhead could get Rampage plus Onslaught. Like, we had never seen that aside from the Breakneck Pinnacle Auto Rifle and stuff like that, right? We had combinations and new perks that these things could get that have never been seen before. Really powerful perk combinations. But this time around, the weapons are barely, if sometimes not at all, better than the original dungeon weapons they're replacing. Again, with the kind of the one exception being the Soul Survivor, right? The Cold Comfort, the rocket launcher from the Ghost of the Deep, guys, it can't even get the original god roll it could get of Envious Assassin plus Bait and Switch. Combined with its origin trait, you could shoot out like 4 or 5 rockets in a row. Like, that was actually a really crazy roll that other rocket launchers just could not do. It can't even get it this time around. It just gets Envious Arsenal Bait and Switch, which is competing with the Hezen Vengeance, but the Hezen Vengeance has a way better origin trait that gives it double rounds in the mag, or 2 rounds in the mag, every single time you reload. So it's just, unless you really want a stasis rocket launcher, it's just outclassed by the Hezen Vengeance, which just came to the game. Like, Bungie very recently updated the Vault of Glass weapon pool. So it's like, we were just grinding for the Hezen Vengeance not very long ago, and now you introduce a weapon that's just like outright worse. Why do I care about this? Right? So that's what I'm saying. Like, the weapons, they don't even have good enough roles to justify grinding right now. And especially if you can maybe like copium yourself into like, well, maybe I need this. Maybe actually this is kind of a cool combo right here. The Judgment can get Headstone in the left column, and that's kind of a cool, interesting Tier 5 weapons. Edge of Fate arrives, then you're going to get access to insanely powerful weapons. Everything is going to be enhanced. And so it also really kind of kills a part of the grind, which is any sort of PvP role. Because the PvE roles are more about, is this gun unique? Can it do things? What is the perk combo? A good example is the Tenacious Mastery. The Tenacious Mastery is a god tier weapon, and it's not going anywhere when the Edge of Fate comes out. It doesn't matter how many tier 5 weapons are introduced, unless they introduce another stasis rocket sidearm with its exact role with chill clip. You're still going to use the Tenacious Mastery. It doesn't matter if a different gun has an enhanced hammer-forged rifling, brother. The Tenacious Mastery is still clapping cheeks. You know what I'm saying? But for PvP roles, it's a game of inches. When you're talking about like the best shotguns, the best hand cannons, the best shotguns are literally like, oh, this one can get a slightly more range. This one has slightly more aim assist. And so now when you have these tier 5s where your best god roll insane hand cannon with hammer forged rifling, now there's another one that comes with enhanced hammer forged rifling for even more range. You're just kind of outclassed just by that fact. Because again, the PvP god rolls, you're dealing with very slight tolerances. You're trying to gain every inch of range for your god tier shotgun, for your god tier hand cannon, etc. Every inch of aim assist, all that stuff. The fact that you're now going to have more of all of those stats because you have enhanced magazines and barrels. Like, why do I care about any PvP role right now? Like, I just don't. And on top of that, I think that's frankly my main part of it. Right? It's just the weapons, the loot quality. I just don't feel like the loot quality, the roles are on the level of the Into the Light event. Not at all. Not to mention, there are also mid-tier roles on not fan-favorite weapons, but I also feel like the chase for holofoils, I just don't care. And I think the main reason is because holofoils are functionally identical than the non-holofoil counterparts. Some people care about visual flair. I do not. All right? Like, I could care less. I will grind for hours and hours and hours, days to get 5% more damage, but I do not care at all. I have zero motivation to go after a different looking thing when it has no functional difference. For me, it's all about the function. And so it's very interesting and very weird, frankly, that just before the Rite of the Nine, we had the episode Heresy differentiation between the different rarities, right? You had the base episode Heresy weapons, then you had the pre-masterworked ones, then you had the adept ones, and then you had the pre-masterwork adept, right? And every time you go up, it actually gives you a functional difference. How many of you guys legitimately grinded for the pre-masterworked version of some of the episode Heresy weapons? Stuff like the Psychopomp, right? The Psychopomp grenade launcher, it could only get the different origin trait runneth over if it was the pre-masterworked. Essentially, if it was holofoil. Like if you got the holofoil, the special version of it, it got a different origin trait. And this different origin trait would give it 3 rounds in the mag for a breech-loaded grenade launcher. That was insane. That was so good. But with holofoils, an adept with double perks has no difference over the adept holofoil version other than look. And to me, again, like, that means I don't care about holofoils. If there's no functional difference, I do not care. And all Bungie had to do was add a 3rd perk row. If holofoils had a 3rd perk row, bro, I'm grinding. You know what I mean? Like, there you go. That's enough for me. But they don't. And so I don't care, right? So I think that whole aspect is the main aspect. It's the weapon aspect. But the other aspect is just how this event actually works in terms of gameplay. For example, when the Rite of the Nine was here, if you want to just hop on, you know, your boys are off doing some whatever, you want to hop on solo, there was solo matchmaking for Onslaught, right? It wasn't always the best experience, but it was there as an option. For this, it's so much harder to do matchmaking for dungeon content, right? You have like just wave survival content versus actual full dungeon encounters. And so you feel kind of pigeonholed into always waiting for a group of people. And if you're barely motivated to go after these mid-tier roles, you gotta find 2 other people who are also barely motivated to go after these mid-tier roles. I just feel like it's just not as fun of an experience if you just want to hop on casually and do a little bit to grind. Whereas again, for Onslaught, like, because you could get those, I guess they were called shinies at the time, you could get the shiny variants no matter which difficulty you were doing. They were just harder to get on the lower difficulty. You didn't feel like you're wasting your time doing just having some fun solo with randoms, because at any moment you get a shiny and it's a big deal, right? I feel like that's kind of missing from this version, because if you're grinding the lower difficulties, it's not like you get a holofoil, you get a normal holofoil, and there's actually an adept holofoil that's outright better, but it only drops in the higher difficulties. You know what I mean? I almost feel like it should have just been one version of the shiny. Maybe not, but that's just kind of how I'm feeling in terms of the gameplay loop. I don't want to always have to go and get a group and grind dungeon encounters. It just isn't that fun. It doesn't have as many options in terms of being able to be accessible for solo and casual and just like small periods of time. I just want to get to wave 10 or whatever. Like, that was an option. Whereas this is like, you're kind of in the whole dungeon. Like, obviously you can do it solo, but it's just not as good of an experience compared to Into the Light, is what I'm saying. And so I find myself at a weird spot. Like, let me know how you guys feel. Maybe I'm completely off base. Maybe everyone else is loving Rite of the Nine, but for me, I think it needed to have significantly better weapon roles that are worth going after, even with the knowledge of what's to come, right? Like, you can't have barely justifiable god rolls when you have tier 5 weapons staring us down. Like, with the barrel of tier 5 weapons is pointed right at us, right? That's what we're going to care about. That's what we're looking at. And not to mention, there's no vault space increase. So, like, you justify yourself to get a slightly unique roll in Rite of the Nine. Where are you going to put it? Brother, I'm full. I got to clear my vault. Now you're telling me I have all of these different armor sets. There is a literal, like, Vanguard set. There is a different set of armor for the Kepler destination. There's a Crucible set. There's a Redacted set. There's a bunch of different sets that are coming to the game. Every single one of them has a unique set bonus. So I've got to have enough vault space. Think about this. I've got to have enough vault space. So let's say, this is going to just illustrate how insane the problem is. Okay, the Crucible set. Actually a very cool armor set. I think the perk is like when you get Orbs of Power, you can get special ammo. That's very good. I want that. So I'm going to have in my vault enough space to have an entire Crucible set so I can have the 4-piece bonus. But all this armor is now broken up into the armor archetypes. So I'm going to want a bunch of Brawler pieces in case I'm making a melee build. I want a bunch of Grenadier pieces in case I'm making a grenade build. I want a bunch of pieces that have a max weapon stat so I can swap to it during DPS and have 200 weapons because that influences my damage against bosses. So like I have to keep like multiple, let's say minimum 3 different versions of each armor set so that I can have these armor set bonuses while also having different stat specs. So it's like the sheer amount of pressure on my poor vault when the Edge of Fate launches is going to be insane. So it's like I have that looming over me where it's like I have to genuinely go and do a massive vault cleaning. I'm not really going to be interested in, again, barely justifiable mid-tier weapons. All these things are just kind of culminating in the fact that, again, I don't care. I don't care about this event. And I really wish that, you know, Bungie had done things a bit differently and, you know, had some more interesting, unique roles on these weapons, stuff that would actually still be desirable with the knowledge of tier 5 weapons. But as it stands, we have a whole extra month of just like, I mean, they're like, every time there's an update, they go in and they're like, oh, now there's a bigger chance to get the weapons you don't care about when you do a full clear. I already don't care. I'm not going to care to have a better chance of getting the weapons I don't care about. So hopefully Bungie can learn from this because, you know, we are going to have more events like this, right? We're going to have 2 major expansions every 6 months. But in between, there's always going to be some sort of free event. And Bungie did look at and actually pointed out the Into the Light event as their North Star, as what they're kind of looking to achieve, like that style of event in these like mid-season events. And so again, Rite of the Nine is another version of Into the Light, right? It's very different, but it's like modeled after it. It's like a free event for all players to keep people interested leading up to a next expansion. So this kind of event is not going away, guys. We're going to get even more of it. Twice a year, we're going to have this type of event. So kind of wanted to make this video to just kind of air my concerns and talk about why I'm not interested in playing, and hopefully again Bungie next time these events come can address some of these issues, right? I'm gonna be in a whole different world when the Edge of Fate comes out, though. Whole different world, whole different armor system, whole different weapon system. I think the one thing they absolutely can fix, though, is give me the damn vault space. You keep introducing new stuff, you gotta make it so that I can have a reason to go after it, right? Like, you gotta give me a place to put this new stuff, Bungie. Hopefully that can get they have stated they're gonna fix it for Renegades, or at least address it. Please, Bungie. Guys, that's it for the video. Hope you enjoyed. Found it interesting. Bit of a crazy yap session. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed this video and found it informative. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That is linked in the description down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.